to anybody who doesn't know you yet.
Yeah, what's going on? My name is Efrem. I'm 25 years old. I'm an American. I worked with Christian back in April and May of 2023. And prior to working with Christian, I was a nervous wreck when it came to flirting. I was going months to years at a time without dates and getting laid. And I was very frustrated. I was envious of all of my friends who were able to get girlfriends no problem. Then I reached out to Christian, and he helped me sort this area of my life out. Now, 2.5 years later, I'm so far from that reality. I have more dates than I know what to do with. In fact, I'm in a phase of life now where I'm not even going on the dates and I'm just focusing on business growth because I'm already satisfied with what I've been able to accomplish dating wise. And if you'd like proof there, then we're going to go over a ton in this live stream. So,
Yeah, awesome. So I thought that it'd be a good idea to talk to people about the first 100 cold approaches because I'm always banging on about get 100 done. Yeah, just get 100 done in as fast of a time possible because it's going to take around 100 until you start to find your flow with this. So I thought it'd be quite a good idea to just kind of walk people through realistic expectations to have what they can expect when they first go out there. They've got the nerves, they've got the jitters, they've got the excuses running through their mind. They're living like a closet heterosexual, which is a massive problem with guys these days. I see it in pretty much all of my clients is fear of being a man, fear of expressing your desire for the feminine. It castrates so many men of their confidence. And in my experience, you can't think your way out of that. Do you know what I mean? You have to act your way. You have to act your way out of it. I think 100 approaches is a good benchmark that anybody can hit. And once you do it, you will start to feel less like a closet heterosexual. So yeah, I mean, take us back to when you were doing it. You know, the first handful of approaches that you did with me in Warsaw. How did you find that initial process going from 0 to 1?
oh, yeah. Um, the good news is there's no escaping the process. So, regardless of how good I may look on camera these days, I remember my first few approaches were honestly some of the scariest things I've ever done in my life, genuinely, full stop. I remember, firstly, to work up the courage to meet you at our meeting location near that Warsaw Old Town statue, and to see you in you had, I believe, a bright fur white coat on or a black fur coat on, one of those two, and you were grinning ear to ear when I saw you, and I remember that just made my heart drop into my stomach, the reality that was starting to set in. And so that was the first hurdle to get over was, whoa, this is real now. Then when it came time to actually getting started, I remember we spoke for a few minutes to calm my nerves. And then you just suggested, hey, let's have a walk. And I knew exactly what that meant. And to be fair, the first approach didn't take me very long to get into, but that doesn't change at all how scary it was for me. It was such a real feeling. I couldn't escape it. I just remember walking over. I remember exactly where she was, sat on a bench. You gave me a nudge. You said you like her. I walked over, and I can't remember what I said, but I know it was something along the lines of like, "Excuse me," and my voice was quivering, and I kind of just dropped a compliment out of my lap onto the on excuse me, out of my mouth onto her lap. I was like, "Oh, you look beautiful," and then I just ran off because I didn't know what to say after that. I couldn't believe that I had just done it. And what I remember about that approach is when I came back to you, you gave me a big hug. You said, well done. And what was cool is that it wasn't a big deal to you. You just shrugged it off and you said, all right, let's continue on. So, what felt like such a grand task that I just accomplished to you was just regular everyday life. And so after that, you had me go for a few more approaches. And yeah, I just remember approach over approach, I saw improvements because every time I went in, after I'd proven to you that I can go for my first approach pretty quickly, now you were able to actually start coaching me through what needed to be improved. And so after each approach, I'd come back to Christian and he'd tell me what he saw, what he heard, what I needed to fix, and what I was doing well. And this is what we talk about when we say turning decades into days, because I wasn't aware of any of the things that I was doing that was wrong, that was shooting me in the foot. And he was able to sniff it out in a matter of 3 seconds of watching me do an approach. And so rather than continuing to do the wrong things over and over and over again, I was able to have an expert just audit the approach cover to cover and tell me exactly what was wrong, just diagnose it right then and there. And this is why I was able to make such rapid progress. So, in a matter of 2 days, I went from my first approach barely able to speak to the girl and then running away after giving her a compliment to on day two lining up my first date with Zara girl over near that desolate area of Warsaw, if you remember her. So early days is not going to be as magical as you think it is as far as the result. But as far as the transformation and the progress, it will exceed your expectations. A lot of times we want things to happen earlier and quicker, but we still have to go through a building phase of the skill set. And so from your first, let's say, day of approaching, you shouldn't expect much as far as results. Now, Christian's gotten the system to a point where he's actually able to get his clients results fairly quickly, but this definitely depends on where your starting point is. So, just if we wanted to blanket statement it, don't even look for results for the first few days of being coached and learning the skill set. Excuse me there, just look for progress and transformation because that's going to happen a lot quicker. And then once that begins to happen, the results will pour in inevitably.
Yeah, 100%. I think what I say to people is when you are first learning the skill, you're out there to get the skill and not to get the women. Because once you've got the skill, the women come by default. And I think what you were mentioning there was really about it's about making the abnormal normal until it becomes your reality, right? Because before you've done this, it just feels fucking weird, like walking over to women and giving them compliments. But as soon as you just make a habit out of doing that, it becomes less of a thing. And now for me, it just feels as normal as drinking water or brushing my teeth. I don't even think twice about it anymore. But I think the best advice I can give to guys, if you are in that beginner stage still, is just focus on opening. That's the hardest part for everybody. Just initiating conversation by giving a hard hitting compliment. Yeah, if you can do that 100 times, just go over to women who are walking, try your best to get them to stop and just use a hard hitting compliment that makes you feel slightly uncomfortable. Like, hey, you look amazing. You look incredible. You look so good. What are you doing today? Oh, nice one. Have a good day. Because every time you do that, you're proving to your mind nothing bad is going to happen. Yeah, because the rep is the reward, like we say in the entourage. It's the rep that you're going out there for. But then if you've got no feedback, it's kind of like going to the gym and practicing bad form. At some point, you're going to get an injury. So when guys are always like, "How many approaches does it take to get laid?" It's like it depends on the quality of your approaches. And after 100 approaches, it's not even about counting the approaches anymore. It's about making the approaches count. And you only make them count once you know what you didn't know. So without getting feedback, you're just shooting in the dark. It's like aiming at a constantly moving target. If you don't know what you shit at, you can't improve it. I had a guy who approached me in London yesterday, and he's been watching my videos for a while, and he was saying how he was getting phone numbers and they weren't going anywhere. I just looked him straight in the eye and I said, "It's because your approaches are shit." And he looked at me because he wasn't expecting that feedback. I was like, "If you're getting numbers and you think, because this was the thing, he said to me his approaches were good. He said, like the approaches that I'm doing, they're good, but I'm not seeing these girls again." So I'm like, well, they're not good. Your approaches are shit. That's why you're not seeing them again. Obviously, there's always going to be girls who flake, but he was saying that every single girl that he was approaching was just flaking. He wasn't seeing them again. I was like, have you ever been given feedback? No. I was saying, do you have any form of social media presence, like an Instagram, for example, where you could send people over to prove that you are a safe person? No. Have you ever had anybody give you no bullshit feedback? No. It's like, well, obviously you're not going to be getting anywhere. It's like if I wanted to learn a language and I'm just sat on my own on Duolingo. Do you know what I mean? Like doing some exercises whilst I'm having a shit. No, if I want to learn a language, I'll go to Brazil, I'll get a Portuguese tutor, and I'll immerse myself in that language for 90 days. Now I've got the accountability to learn it. So I think guys don't actually understand the mountain that's in front of them, especially when they're doing it on their own. That's why I say to people, like, if you've got the funds, just fucking get somebody to help you. It doesn't need to be me. Efrem offers great coaching as well. But I do think in the modern world, you do need some level of feedback, accountability, direction. Otherwise, it's like you're just wanking in the wind. So, yeah, I don't know how you feel when guys are always asking about this. How many approaches does it take to get this metric? Or how do I get this? Or how long will it take? It's like, how long's a fucking piece of string? It depends on you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think guys don't put enough emphasis on that last sentence there. It entirely depends on you. A lot of times we want to put an expectation on a skill set, thinking that it's applied the same for each person that's doing it. And or we want to put too much emphasis on like a technique or a line or the fact that you're getting a couple phone numbers. Really, the main differentiator in cold approach is who is the individual that's actually walking over. So if guys would just focus in more, and I'm not talking about physicality, because oftentimes guys think that that's the main metric. No, it's about your character. It's about who you've been able to build yourself into. It's about how you respond to adversity. It's about if you're able to pick yourself back up when you don't get the result that you want immediately, and everything that comes along with that, and the delivery that inevitably comes along with being that kind of a person. And if people were able to focus more on building that aspect of them, which funny enough, the way to build it is just approach more, then they'd realize that that's such an impossible question to answer. There's no possible way to use my results or my journey and then apply it to another guy who's a different height, different race, different background, different industry that he works in, different age. It doesn't make any sense. So the true key here is the quality of the approach and the quality of the individual. So the good news is the quality of the individual can be improved through approach, but the quality of the approach cannot be improved nearly as much when you're doing it on your own. And so that's why I didn't even try. Yeah, we've just got a guy that joined the entourage yesterday, and the first voice note he sent in the group was, "I found Christian on Sunday. I booked a call on Monday." This is exactly what I mean. I was in the exact same boat where rather than seeing this skill set and deciding, all right, this looks like one of the hardest things I'll ever have to learn if I want to learn it. Let me just try to figure this out on my own. Like instead of following that track of thinking, I decided this looks really difficult and I really want to learn how to do it, but I know I'm so far from being able to do this. So let me just reach out to the guy who's doing it, who's posting it on the internet, who's showing proof of what he can do, and let me see if he can help me. And that's exactly what I did. Same exact thing. Booked the call the next day. We were on the call, and we had secured the immersion coaching experience a day after that. And so it's like rather than wasting your time trying to self audit, because if we want to go a bit deeper here, how can you self audit? If you've not got somebody listening into what you're saying, then you can't possibly come out of each conversation, remember exactly what you said, and then more importantly, know what was wrong with what you said because you've not built yourself into the person who gets the results yet. Same thing with the approach visually is you can't walk over, try to stop the girl, she walks past every single time, and then somehow self audit why she's walking past if you've never been able to successfully stop the girl consistently. That means you don't know what to look out for and what you're doing wrong in order to improve. And so that's the problem is you're blind and you're trying to figure out how to walk in a straight line rather than reaching out to somebody who already is very proficient at not just doing the skill set that you're after, but coaching the skill set that you're after. Yeah, you've got a guy in front of you that is so good at coaching cold approach that not only does he have the most infields out of any creator on the internet, but he's also got a student of his that got so proficient from his coaching that he was able to now coach other guys. I mean, it's replication of the skill set and it's high quality too. So it's I don't know why somebody would spend decades, years to decades of their life trying to figure out such a difficult skill set on their own when they have access through the internet, the age of the internet, they have access to people who can speed this process up into a matter of days to months. Yeah, I'm not saying that this is going to be an overnight fix, but depending where you are, you can go from the position that you're in right now. Yeah, or I'll just use myself as an example. I was able to go from somebody who was very sexually frustrated and dissatisfied with my dating life to and we have the Warsaw videos to prove it. To by the end of our coaching experience, I think I had 3 dates lined up that day. And we kept lining up dates and it was my last day. I couldn't even go on them. I was like, I had like depression in that moment. I was like, Christian, what do I do? I got 5 dates lined up for next week, but I'm gonna be in San Francisco. Like if you want to talk about drastic identity shifting, it's like I couldn't even believe who I was when I watched those videos back. I was just going, it's crazy because right before meeting this guy, I was swiping on apps for months at a time with no luck, and now I've got more dates than I can even go on, and that's all because I reached out for coaching.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm working with a guy at the moment. He's 50 years old, and like many guys who reach that the big 5-0, kind of got to that point where he's like, well, it's now or never. Do you know what I mean? Not getting any younger. Felt as though he'd pissed away a lot of his life on absolute nonsense. And we did our first day of coaching yesterday. He was only 8 approaches in. 8 approaches in. He had this unreal conversation with this Polish worldie. He spoke with her for about 15 minutes. He got it all on camera as well because part of the package that I'm doing with him is he's having his entire immersion recorded for private training purposes. That means we can look back over all of his approaches after the immersion, and I can continue to give him detailed feedback frame by frame, which means he can just accelerate and remove all the trial and error even faster. But as we were going, there were things in his approaches that became very obvious to me. So when he did an approach, we had a little conversation about it, and he did one where he went over and he approached this girl near Oxford Street, and he went into the approach, and you'll know it yourself. When you're first starting, your tonality is all over the place. You almost sound like a castrated schoolboy. You're giving off these like weird gay best friend type of vibes. So he came out of that conversation. He thought it went half decent. I just said to him in the middle of Oxford Street, dude, you sound like a gay best friend. And you know what I'm like. I say things loud as well. And he was like, you have no idea how useful that feedback is to me. Like I've gone 50 years of my life and nobody's ever just been as straight and direct as you've been right there. And he was like, I know why you're saying it because you want me to be successful. Because at the end of the day, I want all my clients to win. And if that means I need to call you gay best friend vibe in the middle of Oxford Street when everyone's looking, then I'll fucking do that. Why? Because you'll remember it more. You remember it more when you've got heightened emotion attached to something. So when I gave him that feedback, he was like, now I'm aware of it, I can actually control it in my conversations. Because if he'd have continued doing that on his own, all he would have been doing was he would have been accentuating this platonic gay best friend vibe, which a lot of guys have got, but they're not even aware of it. So I was like, dude, you're talking way too fast. Your pitch is just too high. You're not giving the girl long enough to answer. You stood too far away, probably because you're scared of being a man and declaring your desire. So all of these things, I think, they're all related to the same thing, which is what I call closet heterosexuality, where men today are just scared of being men. They're scared of putting the balls on the line. They're scared of carrying the dick into the conversation with them. And this is why I try and make guys aware you don't actually have dating problems. You've got personal problems, and it's the personal problems which come out in your dating life. So you probably don't think, or you probably carry shame at the moment around your sexuality. You might think it's wrong in some way to cold approach women. You might have friends in your social circle who are shaming you for wanting to go out there and live a better dating life. And you'll get these other morons who say cold approaching women is creepy. And I'll tell you what's fucking creepy. What's creepy is hanging at the back of nightclubs at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, prying on drunk girls. That's fucking creepy. Walking over to women in broad daylight and giving genuine compliments. For me, that's the gentleman's way of going about things. So I think for these first 100 approaches that guys do, it's really going to hold a mirror up to who they are. Not who they think they are, but who they actually are. I've got a friend in Germany, and he once said to me, never judge a man until you've seen him in set. And it's so true. You can talk a big game. You can pretend to be Billy Big Bollocks in the pub on a Saturday, but when you're in front of a beautiful woman and your mind is just screaming at you not to do it, then you find out what you're made of. But I do think these 100, the first 100 that you do, they're just batting practice. They're designed to get your reps in. So don't worry if you're not getting phone numbers at the start. Don't worry if you're not getting happy endings or not replicating the same level of verbal mastery that a lot of these game morons online seem to have. A lot of guys online, they're just showing the highlight reels, man. That's all it comes down to. They're just putting videos out there for clicks. And that's okay. Sure, it gets traction. But that's why I appreciate people like you. They show the rejections. You know, you do those uncut videos where you show yourself in London for fucking 40 minutes, getting battered 10 times in a row. And then by staying in there and not losing enthusiasm, you end up going on a date with the 11th girl that you approach, which is also another great mindset. Had this yesterday with a 50-year-old guy. You're only one away from everything changing. He had an approach, really interesting story. He had an approach before he number closed the Polish worldie, who I think he's going to be going on a date with tonight, which is fucking mad. He had before that approach happened, he approached another girl, and then the boyfriend showed up. this was like one of his fears. He almost manifested it. He was like, on one of our entourage group coaching calls, how do I handle it if the boyfriend shows up? And we were all like, oh, don't worry, mate. It's like 1 in a million times that'll happen. Motherfucker, the seventh approach he had, the boyfriend shows up. And the boyfriend, dude, the boyfriend was angry that he approached his woman. He was like, brother, just go. So I've got this 50-year-old teacher with me who's now visibly shaken from this difficult approach. Like, if he was on his own, he's going home. He ain't continuing. So we have a little walk, we get it out of his system, and this absolute beautiful Polish worldie with a pink coat walks on by, and he's like, all right, I'll go do this one. And that turns into a number close with a potential date that he's got lined up. So really what that story illustrates is, like you say, they're all independent of each other, right? You're only one approach away from everything changing. And the craziest part was when he came out of that approach, I said to him, how do you feel now about that other approach that happened? And you know what he said? He said, what approach? And it's mad that the approach which visibly shook him, where the boyfriend comes out, it's like he doesn't even remember it. It gets wiped into the ether after he just puts himself into another approach. So yeah, if you're getting absolutely just like shit on right now, you're one away, right? You're just one away from your entire belief system around approaching changes. So I know that was quite a tirade, but if you could extract anything which is semi relatable from that, then that would be awesome.
Mate, few things I could extract. That was all great. Um, Firstly, we you say this a lot. We suffer more in imagination than we ever do in reality. And so when we talk about these worst case scenarios that we imagine in our heads, like your student just found out yesterday, he was worried more about the thought of that happening than it actually happening. Because when it did, he could handle it. He found out that he could handle it. And he found out that worst case scenario isn't so bad after all, is it? A lot of guys are so worried about the harsh blowout, and that's their worst case scenario. And then they come and they get coached, and then they have their harsh blowout, and they realize this is what was keeping me shackled for the last 5 years. I came across this space 5 years ago, and I've been scared to take action because of that reaction that I just had, that I just experienced. And then I looked around and nothing changed. If anything, I got more confident in myself because I realized nothing else happens. And it's so crazy to think that guys will spend years of their life avoiding a moment like you've just described that your student just had. And then another immediate learning off the back end of that experience is that he can still continue on with this session and not just continue, but the very next approach end up being a girl that's coming out with a date on him potentially the second day of his immersion. I mean, he's having the proper cold approach immersion roller coaster during these last 2 days. That's unreal to go in for an approach, have your worst case scenario actually happen, then come to realize it's actually not as bad as I thought it was. And then immediately after that, have best case scenario happen. I mean, that just illustrates this skill set perfectly. It's so unpredictable, but what can we control is, do we continue to take action? Do we allow the reactions, good or bad, to impact how we feel about ourselves? Or do we feel firm within ourselves, firm within our skill set, and continue going in because we know that that is the one true controllable? Is, does Christian student continue to take action even when the boyfriend showed up? And because he did, well, what do you know? Happy days. The man's got a date on day 2 of his immersion. I mean, that's as impressive as it gets. That really is amazing. So the other thing that reminded me of is that you don't have to nearly be as good as you think you need to be in order to actually get results from this skill. So the same way I was describing earlier on the stream how on day 1 I was visibly shaking going in for those approaches. And then day 2 I was able to line up my first date similar to Christian student. But I was a lot worse than I am now on day 2 of my immersion. Yet that version of me was still good enough to get results. So same thing with your student found out yesterday is maybe he was watching along your infields and he saw that massive gap between where he was and where you are, and he thought, holy shit, do I need to get over there in order to get dates? Not at all. In fact, you earlier in the day you said he sounded like a gay best friend. And a few approaches later, he was able to tweak that enough under your guidance and coaching to the point where he can actually get a date with a Polish worldie for the very next day. So this is proof that guys that spend years and decades trying to iterate on a skill set on their own, walking through the dark, not knowing what they need to fix, could just spend a few $1,000s on coaching, and that would expedite that entire process into a matter of 24 hours. I mean, in his case, what 3 hours of approaching. He went from gay best friend vibes to closing Polish worldie. Yeah, and the reason I'm emphasizing speed there is because I value my time so much more than I value my money. I know that I can make more money. I know that I can't get more time back. And who knows that better than a 50-year-old who comes to work with you? Yeah. And so I can already imagine that he saw your content and he just thought, what are we doing here? Like, we've got no more time to waste. If there's ever a time in my life to sort this skill set out, it's here and now. And so he reached out, he showed up for coaching, he took your feedback on board. He didn't get offended when you called out exactly what you told him you would during your application call. You told him you'd be honest, and you were. He didn't get offended. He took the feedback on board, and this is why he gets the results so quickly. It's not because he's fixated on approach ratio, date, lay count, number flake ratio, none of that shit. He's fixated on improving his approach, himself, how he's delivering himself in these conversations, and he has the results to show for them. So, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I think I
that's
think
an amazing story. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I think all that happened in the first 90 minutes. It was mad because it was only like it just happened so fast. And before that, before the approach with the Polish worldie, there were parts of his mindset that was getting deflated because he had a few approaches where, I mean, we've all had it where you walk over, you get the stop, it's just like the stop is just shit. They keep walking, they give you maybe like a funny look, like what are you doing? Because you've just not got the fundamentals down yet. But at the same time, I think there's something quite sincere about being shit at cold approach at the start because you're right. I think if you do consume a lot of content online, it widens the gap between who you are right now and who you think you need to be. And that can be good for motivation. But I think what I keep relearning time and time again by taking beginner clients from just having cripplingly bad, we'll call it approach anxiety, to be able to get the results they're looking for is how much weight the approach itself carries. Like once you've just got the basics on point, so you know how to stop, you know how to deliver a strong, hard hitting compliment, you're making unapologetic eye contact. So you've started to diminish.
Has he lagged out? Has he lagged out? Oh, that's so unfortunate. All right, well then we'll wrap up in that case. If we're still live, I don't know if I've lagged out or Christian's lagged out, but it's okay. He's got an immersion to. He's got some coaching to do in a few minutes anyway, so that this worked out perfectly. So, look, what we wanted to discuss and accomplish on this stream was that we wanted to describe what the beginner's journey is going to be like before coaching, during coaching, and after coaching. So hopefully you've pulled value from this. If you would like to reach out for Christian for coaching, then he's got his link in the description below. And I'm one of Christian's students as well. So if you want to have a look at how proficient Christian is at coaching guys through this skill set, I've got loads of infields on my channel as well. We'll link that in the description as well. So I'm living, breathing proof that Christian is an expert at teaching this skill set to guys from their early 20s to their late 40s, early 50s. Yeah, his current client is 50 years old right now. So if you boys would like to reach out to Christian, see if you'd be a good fit for coaching, just click that first link in the description below. Go ahead and schedule an application call with him. All right.